that toxic marriage alone. Get out of it. Dash out. Don't listen to anybody. Leave the toxic marriage. What are you still doing there? Why are you there? Why? Marriage that you don't have a business being there. Whatever it is you and your husband is going through, I really do not think that the children should be in between. There is no point staying in the marriage when you know that it is showing you shaggy. Now my problem is it a do or die affair? Why would you stay in a marriage that is toxic? Why would you stay in a marriage that is affecting your mental health? Why would you stay in a marriage that you know that you're no longer comfortable? To be honest, I am not the kind of person that will stay in a marriage that is giving me problem or issues. If it cannot be resolved, I still want to live my life. And sometimes some things that cause this problem is the fact that most women, after they've gotten married, they focus their life, which I know sometimes is not a bad thing and it can be a bad thing depending on how you see it. Their life now starts to evolve around the man. Take for example, in some situations, I've had friends who got married, and because they are married, they stop talking to single people. Like their communication with their friends reduce. Sometimes it's understandable if your friend is of the opposite gender, especially if you guys are close, you don't want to offend his wife. It's understandable. You don't have a life outside of that marriage. Your focus now is your husband. My husband, my husband, my husband, my husband. You don't want a life. Don't you want a life apart from your husband and your children? Create a life for yourself. Balance your family life and your social life and your work life. Then the other thing that I have a problem with this gender is that some people abandon their family just because they got married to a man. I've seen situations whereby when you are in love, you might not see the commas, the errors of this particular person, but your family might. Sometimes your family might be wrong, but don't discard the advice of people. Make sure, shine your eyes. Shine your eyes in this life. Shine your eyes. I am not a marriage counselor. We see these things. It is something that happened in major household in an African home. The reason why you would not go is because maybe major things that is meant to be handled by yourself, if you decide to leave the marriage, you cannot handle it because it is the man that is doing everything. You don't have a life to say, I want to go. I've seen situations whereby people tell me that, where do they want to start from? Start from somewhere. You have a life. You are still living. See, when you are alive, there is hope. There are situations whereby they kill each other. Why? Just because you married gender. If you are in a toxic marriage, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. It is not only domestic violence. It is not when you beat the person that you are suffering. There are marriages that will stress you emotionally, mentally. I've seen people in marriage that before they got married, they look so beautiful. They have their life all together, but immediately they venture into this business of marriage because it's a business. It's a transaction. And most people always tend to believe at the initial stage that love can sustain marriage. Love cannot sustain marriage. When children start being involved, why do you think our mothers, the older generation, focuses on their children when they were actually raising a family? This situation, especially for people who live abroad, has been happening countless times. Both of them gets to the abroad, they relocated abroad, and then the woman just turned against the husband just because there was something going on in their marriage. And instead of you to just leave the man, you took advantage of him sponsoring everything to travel, and then you turned on him. You no longer want the marriage. Most times they are always the dependents. His visa would be rendered invalid. Is either he gets another visa or he goes back home. Terrible. Terrible. That's someone's son. I don't know what the person might do to you. I have a principle that even before you offend me, I forgive you ahead of time. Maybe that is why I'm so forgiving. But that does not mean I will take your nonsense. That you offend me does not mean that I should not forgive you. But at the same time, if I forgive you, it does not mean that I am going to continue being your friend. That's just life. Let the universe deal with you. I am not concerned about me dashing you the consequences. That your husband is rich, they are doing well in their family, does not mean you should just sit down and have nothing to do. Have something to do, so whenever anything happens, it might not even be to exit that marriage. Taking a break. Sometimes, couples take a break. They separate from each other for a while till they get themselves together and, come back, resolve their issue. It's not compulsory sometimes to just exit the marriage without trying to find a solution. Women, when they get married and they put their time, their energy, their effort into the marriage, they see it as an investment. That's an investment, to be honest. I know that it is a lot. I know it's a lot of investment, but most times why it affects women is because most times they have nothing to do. They've put all their lives and hope on the man. They are going to get a dividend out of this marriage. My dear, separate your life from family. Marriage is not a joking matter. If you cannot cope, don't do it. So many people who just give birth to children, do you think they want to just give birth to children? But they've been there, done that. Emotionally, marriage will drain you. No matter how rich you are, marriage will test you. It is even in the Bible. I'm going to find the scripture and drop it. When Apostle Paul was telling the people, I'm not saying you should not get married, but if you marry, I am not guaranteeing that the marriage will not be of a challenge. But if you don't get married, your focus will be more on God. You serve God with all your heart. It will test you. No matter how in love you guys are, your children will make it test you. Finances will make it test you. Life in general, people, talks, ambition will make it test you. Imagine you as a lady, you are more ambitious than your man. Family might come and say, she's too ambitious, she's not going to listen to what you say. In your family, the man's family, we test you. Marriage is not something that you base your entirety on. Have a life. It is very important to have your finance. The life does not evolve around marriage. It is not a do or die affair. Marriage is not the only thing that makes a human being. Even children, it's not the only thing that makes a human being. You as a person, you have a purpose apart from raising children and giving birth. You are not a chicken. Now, this is my opinion. I'm not saying you should agree with my opinion. If you don't agree, that's your business. But summary of this pep talk is that have a life. You cannot be a human being and you don't have a purpose. There is nothing to lay back on if anything happens to you. Don't kill yourself because of a gender. It is not worth it at the end of the day, because that gender is going to live his or her life. Now, this is not about men or women. This is both genders. They would live their life. If you are gone, I've seen someone who because of marriage has high blood pressure because of marriage, and when she left that marriage, she got better. Some people do not have that kind of opportunity. They either lose their life in the process or they become a shadow of themselves. Leave the toxic marriage alone. Even relationship, if it's not going well, leave it alone. You've seen the signs, run. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys. I'll see you guys in my next one. I hope I look good.